what I have to say about that is my issue is not the swap, because like you said, it does happen all the time. My issue is on the stance of what happened in the process of the swap. I do agree with Tiffany when she said it was a rushed process. I do believe that it wasn't a fair swap due to the fact that she was a celebrity. Let's take away the Black, let's take away the minority qualities as far as the LGBT, as the Black community. This is a big national risk that we have done. And I think that that's where the issue lies, not in the retrospect of even having a swap by itself, but just the fact of what the reason of the swap was. We had no say as America of who we were going to swap. Russia said, this is what was going to happen, and either you take it or you leave it.
Well, first thing is that I think that we need to establish that this wasn't a trade. This was ransom. Like, she was held for ransom. She was a political prisoner. She, when you look at what has happened in Russia for what she did, that's not typically what happens, because marijuana offenses in Russia, anything less than 6 grams has a maximum punishment of 15 days imprisonment. And then in 2019, Audrey Lorber was there. She went there with 19 grams. That's 27 times the amount that Brittney Griner had. And she was freed after 1 month detention and a $235 fine. So this was ransom. And then people get to talking about, oh, this swap wasn't fair. And then when it comes to President Trump and all of that, he traded 5,000 Taliban and ISIS fighters, and 400 of them have been convicted and deemed by Afghanistan as killing Afghans and threats to their country, and we released them. So this is something that America has done time and time again, but now it's getting so much publicity because now it's a Black woman in the situation.
Kim?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the thing that has probably alarmed people is that she's a Black woman, and they don't usually come for us, right? We are usually at the bottom of the barrel. You're right, Tammy. This has happened before. This is ransom. Does anybody know how Trevor Reed got home? I mean, do we know people who've been swapped or traded for, not traded, but the ransom has been paid in the past? I've been really surprised at kind of the outrage that people have had, because I haven't heard this kind of conversation or had seen people with this kind of energy when previous Americans were released. Well, she's American, she was released. What she did, what she was caught with was like worthy of a traffic ticket, and she was a political prisoner. I'm glad they went for her, and I don't understand all the outrage.
Tiffany, was she a political prisoner?
So what my thing is that when you travel outside the United States, your rights and privileges are very, very different. You don't have the same rights and privileges as you had in the United States. Being Black people, we know that the rules apply to us much, much differently. And I'm sure everybody on here, your mother or your grandmother has said, don't do anything that's going to embarrass me while we're here. Don't make me take you into the bathroom. Unfortunately, Brittney had some stuff in her suitcase where she may or may not have known was there that put her in a really bad situation. And it made it such that the laws in Russia were imposed upon her. We can all differ on if it was fair or not, but when you put yourself in a situation where you knowingly break a law, or people have to make you a victim of their laws, which are very, very different than what we have in the United States, you've put yourself in that situation. And so that's the thing that's missing in a lot of this, is that personal accountability. You know, she may have had the vape device with a little bit of oil in it. At the end of the day, it's illegal. You're traveling to Russia as a guest to play basketball. I'm an Air Force veteran. I did 2 tours overseas. I did a year in Portugal, and I did 6 months in tent city after 9/11. And let me tell you, when I was in Oman, I was in the Middle East. It was my job to do my job and to make sure that I never put my country, my president, or my chain of command in a situation where they had to bargain for me, where they had to pay a ransom. I never wanted Al Sharpton, Nancy Grace or anyone like that to have to advocate for my release because I take full responsibility for my actions. And that's
Tiffany, there is definitely a difference between a soldier and a citizen. And soldiers make that known all of the time. That's number one. And number two, what about what George said? They've had people who've had marijuana possession in Russia, and the most one woman got was 15 days, was a month.
I cannot speak to the how laws are applied, but when we're brown people, if we get traffic tickets, whenever the law has the opportunity to come down on us, it's not always fair. So how about not putting yourself in those situations?
Well, I think that this was.
And I want to say, in response before it gets too far off of what Kim Davis said earlier. She stated something about we didn't know about Trevor Reed's trade, and we didn't know about all these other things. You see, I believe we only knew about her trade, Brittney's trade, not because she was Black, but because she was a celebrity, right? She had a national coverage on this, right? She has celebrity backing. That's why we all know about this, and we're talking about this now.
Well,
there are
yes, on some level.
Hold on. There are over 60 wrongfully detained Americans, all nationalities over, but we're not talking about none of that.
And
right?
That's the exact point, King. Hold on, King. That's the exact point.
George. I'm going to let him get his thought in.
Because she is a celebrity. And the only reason why Brittney is even out today, don't get me wrong, I'm so happy that she's out. I don't think she should have gotten the 9 years that she got. She should have been released a long time ago, granted, right? And I'm so happy she's home with her family. Being a part of the LGBT community, being a part of the Black community, I understand and I relate. Being in her shoes, I would not want to be there. But politically, going into this, that was a wrong decision because we have other detainees that need to be home. We have other detainees that don't have the coverage and the backing that she has.
I do agree with King in that there are 60 other politically held Americans around the country and that we need to effort them home as well. But my problem with the entire coverage of this and people's response has been they haven't been keeping that same energy. Like, where were you? Because they've been stomping on the tables. Oh, bring Paul Whelan home. And yes, Paul Whelan should be able to come home. But Paul Whelan's family, his twin brother, David, tweeted out and put out a statement and was like, good job, President Biden, making a trade that could happen, as opposed to waiting for one that was not going to be able to happen. And I think that some of this goes back to the Colin Kaepernick national anthem stuff, where people look at Brittney Griner and they're like, she hates America. But the reality is that if Paul Whelan had a daughter who was over there and held captive, Americans would want a former Marines kid brought home, right? Before Brittney Griner. But how about if Brittney Griner's dad would serve 2 terms in Vietnam, was the 30 years as a police officer? Aren't those the people that we want to protect our servicemen and women? Because I've been to 22 military bases around the world speaking to our servicemen and women. And I understand their sacrifice. And yes, when they're held, when their family is held, those are the people that we need to prioritize at the top of the list. And like I said, this was not a swap. This was not a trade. This was ransom. She was held for ransom because of the timing and what was going on in Ukraine as well, because she's played multiple seasons in Russia. So think about how politically motivated that this is, because owners of sports teams are very wealthy and politically connected people. If the people who owned her team, which are Russian, could not get her out of jail or help her at all, that further just puts up the point that she was being politically held.